Hey there, you're watching. Reader Recap. The story begins when the female protagonist, Erdella Anuas, discovers a news report showing that her future marriage has been destroyed. She feels angry and wants to know who originated the false reports, so she calls her aide, Nathan, who rushes to her side. He requests her to calm down, claiming they can't do anything about the rumors right now, but the female protagonist refuses, saying the rumors will ruin her public image. Nathan follows carefully as she orders him to fetch her the people who published the stories. Despite her first response, Erdella has been expecting everything that has happened, from her fiancé putting off their wedding to new rumors that he is neglecting her. As she quietly takes her tea, she reflects on how she's going to fix things, refusing to let her nightmare happen again. Erdella is Anuas's crown princess, and because her father, the previous king, died while she was young, her elder cousin Sangre Tristani, who was also the duke, became the regent. She trusted him entirely when she was little, relying on her cousin for everything. She was thrilled to be engaged to Joshua Tennant, but one night she heard noises coming from the bedroom. With her eyes wide, she saw his fiancé in bed with another woman, who laughed at her smugly, shattering her heart. Meanwhile, Sangre, whom she trusted the most, began to get rid of her, circulating rumors that she was not of royal lineage. When her mother, the last queen, died, Erdella was taken away by knights, who forced her to leave the castle while the duke happily watched from afar. At the age of 27, the court sentenced her to death, and she couldn't help but believe it was all because she was young and naive. She went back in time for years, and when she awoke, she had the capacity to detect lies from other people around her. Currently, the princess makes a decision to start a new life, refusing to let history repeat itself, and as she recalls the suffering that she suffered in her previous life, Erdella throws her cup on the table, telling herself that she will become the villain rather than being a victim. She is determined to bring down those who deceived her, specifically Sangre, who is responsible for most of her suffering. Unfortunately for her, Erdella will soon meet someone, and everything she has lost will be reclaimed, as well all of her goals. Later, Nathan anxiously notifies his mistress that a letter from Joshua arrived yesterday, but she barely glances at it, knowing that in the Anuas royal line, getting engaged at 19 and marrying your lover at 20 is a custom. Joshua, the man she loved, was both lovely and gentle. Nevertheless, before leaving Erdella, he cheated against her with her cousin Lily. She explains to Nathan that her fiancé will be putting salt in her wound by sending a letter. Therefore, she sends it to him. After her assistant asked exactly what she plans to do, she thought for a while before laughing and instructing Nathan, much to his surprise, that he should forget about the letter. He immediately argues, noting that any messages in the palace are documented, implying that what she's doing is foolish, but she states that he lost the letter, grabbing it from his hands. She throws it in the fire, saying there's no need to read it because it's just divorce letters. As Nathan is still shocked, Erdella admits that Joshua did something she requested him not to do, and she expresses her desire that her assistant will not thereafter treat her as a broken lady, to which he quickly agrees. She proceeds toward where Joshua is, thinking there's something she wanted to offer him later, after asking him to prepare a carriage since she'll be seeing her fiancé. Later, at the Duke's residence, the princess's group is sincerely welcomed, but rather than entering by the front door, she points out that she wishes to take a less used way, explaining how criminals use less traveled paths. Somebody falls from a tree and screams in agony while they walk along the path. When someone says that his fall won't kill him, Joshua becomes shocked to find Erdella in front of him. She questions him what's currently going on, seeing him being naked plus the fact that he had just left Lily's room. When people present in the princess's group begin to speculate, Joshua tells her that he knows that she's doing that because she reads the letter he wrote. But Erdella merely plays stupid by inquiring her assistant regarding it. As Nathan apologies and explains that all of the letters delivered to the princesses earlier in the day had gone missing, Joshua feels concerned. The assistant claims that letters have already been delivered to his home, informing him of the situation. But because Joshua was at home, he couldn't have read it yet. Joshua, terrified, assures Erdella that his action has been a mistake as grabbing for her right hand, but she knocks his hand away, declaring clearly that she is not any more engaged with him. She washes her fingers, shocked, and demands that the man respects her. When he shouts her name angrily, she is threatening to execute him for his disobedient behavior. The nearby door suddenly opens up, exposing Lily, who shouts, declaring that she and Joshua love each other. As she inquires as to what she is doing, her cousin talks about how Joshua loves her even more than Erdella, telling how he would always claim that she is more beautiful than the princess. Despite her expectations, the female protagonist just grins and demands that Lily rise. The blonde-haired woman intends to accuse her of having been envious when she notices the princess reaching for a knight's weapon. While Nathan begs his mistress to stop, Erdella takes the blade and points it towards Lily. At the same time, a bunch of men are discussing how they are Anuas for the very first time before asking their Prince Aesel, about what he thinks. As the latter says that it's an excellent location to trade discreetly, the guys congratulate the prince for possessing a keen eye, informing him that no matter how other people judge him, which the blonde man appreciates. The prince emerges from the trees and explains that the residence in front of them will be where he's going to be trading tomorrow's morning. He's going to tell them they should turn back because they're simply surveying the area when they hear someone screaming. As the prince turns his head back, he notices an argument close and laughs, believing the dark-haired woman is fierce. At the same moment, as Lily's blonde hair drops onto the ground, Erdella mocks her cousin, claiming how her cousin always has been hungry for everything that she has. Lily has always wanted anything Erdella had since when they were children, yet she had to give up simply to prevent the blonde from sobbing. Even so, the princess declares that this is her last chance at pointing her weapon at her and telling other women to quit wanting what is hers. Joshua reaches for Erdella's arm, imploring for them to speak in private, but she merely snatches her arm aside. She now aims her weapon at him as she tells him she's breaking up with him, much to his surprise. He falls on his knees as she threatens to execute him if he ever speaks with her again. After returning the weapon to its rightful owner, the merciless lady demands her ex-fiancé if he would remain silent. He crawls near her, shaking with fear, licking Erdella's shoes. Still, the princess proudly declares that she would be repealing her engagement to Joshua, citing royal deception and cunning as the basis for the separation. Lily and the rest of the group keep mute, declaring it an insult, while Joshua attempts to argue. Erdella, on the other hand, punishes him, announcing that he, along with everyone else in his family, are expelled and must continue to live on the borders of the empire. When the princess adds that every single one of her ex-fiancé's properties and honors would be taken, her ex-fiancé drowns in despair. Finally, she warns him that unless he gets granted forgiveness, he will be unable to leave his area until he passes away, and she calls Nathan and the servants of the Tristani duchy as eyewitnesses. Erdella laughs as Lily suddenly pipes out, labeling her an evil person because she did things like this. The female protagonist expresses gratitude to her cousin for identifying her as one, especially because other people are unaware of this truth. The princess asks whether or not she receives her warning, considering the blonde merely has to look in her own mirror to find out. Erdella reflects on her trip back, considering that Joshua and Lily, who harmed her in the past, had already deceived the princess beforehand when she arrived in her new existence. Her ex-fiancé, in especially, became acquainted with a slew of promiscuous women and was seduced by Lily. Then she recalls Sangre, the one who framed her and stolen everything off her, and she vows that she'll make him suffer next. Nathan becomes worried as the princess shivers and asks if she's cold, but she just tells him she's all right before wondering about the people who began the unfounded story. He responds that the knights were previously aware of the situation and had succeeded in apprehending the perpetrators. Erdella is happy when he says the purveyor should now be at the imperial residence. The carriage suddenly comes to a stop, causing the occupants to jump from their seats. Nathan ultimately asks his mistress if she's okay, and she nods. When her attendant opens the door and demands to know what occurred, He is confronted with a cat-towing figure who begs for mercy and pity. Nathan approaches them as Erdella watches after the princess tells him to find out what's going on. After he returns, he claims that they are the source of the fake news, having escaped the royal guard before coming onto the princess's carriage. The female protagonist steps out, expressing her dissatisfaction with the fake news report distributed by the frightened figures. The terrified lads exchange glances before the younger one apologizes once more, pledging never to mention her personal issues again. Erdella gets annoyed and orders him to continue to keep his mouth shut unless he desires his death. Sighing, she adds that she's not the kind to call off an engagement on the whim of the moment, assuring him that their news goods was incorrect. When she wonders who shared the report of her false withdrawal, Nathan replies it was a youngster, Yohab, who publishes fake newspapers so he can financially benefit, and the boy who is older is his brother, Tony. After Nathan mentions how they pretend to be journalists and write misleading shards, the princess wonders why they're doing it, and Yohab replies that it's the only method available for them to keep their family from starving. Their family had already been without food for 3 days when he got the news about her. Erdella softens as she realizes the youngster took risks simply so they could eat, and she remarks that he's extremely brave for his age. Because it was an issue of survival, the princess declares she can't bear a grudge against them before asking Nathan, much to her surprise, to supply them with money. She gives Tony a gold coin and says she will not hold them responsible for their deeds, but she warns them that if their deception hurt their victim, they would have done an even more horrific crime. She gives both lads a chance, which piques the elder boy's interest. Unexpectedly recalling her previous life, she claims she opted to end her relationship with Joshua, indicating to them that she was the one who initiated the annulment of their marriage. After Tony praises her, she turns to Yohab and hands him an additional gold coin, directing him to bring an updated version of the news piece the next day. Erdella tells the youngster it's compensation for his services before handing him the money, which he joyfully takes. As she enters the carriage, she warns them not to do anything that may undermine their worth. The next day, word circulated that Princess Erdella had called off the marriage on her own record with elegance and resolution. The female protagonist grins joyously as she enjoys the headline of the news item, which depicts her as a confident woman. That's all for today. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you and see you on the next one.